So our first will be the IT. There's two members of the IT, Drew and Joan. Go ahead and appoint you both co-chairs of that. So either or you come to the, you can call a meeting when you feel like you need to, or you can not have one if you don't want to. I explained to Susan that it's just kind of, and Jimmy can offer some advice on that too. It's basically just getting Jeff, our contracted IT person, to come in and tell us what the future holds and what we plan to do with security and things like that in our cyber world. So I think that they keep a pretty close watch on it. But if anything's big coming up, or we need to get rid of a server, or if we're changing something, then they want to. You two will be the ones that come through with it first and explain it, and then you can deliver it back here. And maybe this will give you some education in IT.
Yeah, it will.
So everybody's got a microphone in front of them. Got a button on there. Just push. You put the lights up. You can talk on it. Everybody can hear you. And then if you want to talk under your breath, you can turn that off, and nobody can hear you then. We'll go ahead and do. It's close enough to do ordinance. The members of the ordinance committee, you will nominate and vote on a chair and vice chair tonight. And the ordinance committee consists of Micah Broughton, Susan Garner-Jones, Jimmy Young, Ralph Bales, Ben Hooten, Alan Floyd, and Ralph Edds. And Alan is not here yet. He's running a little bit behind. But we've probably got enough to carry that business on through. Yeah, before the quorum meeting. So I will entertain a motion to nominate a chair and vice chair for ordinance.
Judge Mahoney, I'd like to nominate Micah Broughton, chairman.
You have a vice chair to go with it?
Not me. I do not. Do we need to pair them?
Yeah, I just thought we would pair them.
I don't remember he was on that committee. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't bring more copies.
Okay.
Jeremy Brown.
No, he's not.
I'd make a suggestion since he's our new resident attorney. I'm not on the committee, but Justice Young, if you consider nominating Justice Hooten as a vice chair of that committee, I think that'd be appropriate since he's
That
our
would be
attorney.
well. And Hooten.
You don't want to do vice chair, Jimmy, since you've done this before.
I haven't been nominated.
I nominate Jimmy Young for vice chair of ordinance.
So we've got a chair of Michael Broughton for chair, Jimmy Young for vice chair. Any others? All right. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, so Micah, you're going to actually have some business tonight,
Yes.
right before the court meeting. So if you want to close your meeting out, then you're in charge.
So start ordinance now.
No, we'll do it right before quorum court, but
Oh, gotcha.
you can adjourn your meeting because you are the chair now.
Okay.
That's
Oh, adjourn. Sorry, I'm getting there.
Jimmy
Jimmy
Young.
Young.
So Micah's chair and Jimmy is vice chair. And we've got a few minutes before we do the next one. Ralph Wells, Ben Hooton, Brian Peters, Nub Hunter, and Ralph Eds. Chair,
I have a
I'd like-
nomination.
all right.
I nominate Jimmy Young for chair and Nub Hunter for vice chair.
We have a nomination for Jimmy Young for chair, and Nub Hunter for vice chair.
Second that.
Any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Jimmy, you want to close your meeting? All right. Committee are Michael Broughton, Thomas Anderson Jones, Ralph Vales, Ben Hooton, Alan Floyd, and Nub Hunter. Entertain a motion for a chair and vice chair.
I'll make a motion for Thomas Anderson as chair, and Michael Broughton for co-chair, vice chair.
Second.
Have a motion to make Thomas Anderson chair, Michael Broughton vice chair. Have any others? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Good job, Thomas. Jeremy Brown. Emotion,
Judge, I'd
what
like to
nominate?
come on.
I'll second that.
All right. Okay.
No.
Brian Peters,
Yes.
Jeremy Brown,
Yes. Yes.
next one. Uh, Thomas Anderson, Jimmy Young,
Yes.
Dayton Myers,
Yes.
Alan Floyd,
Yes.
Brian Peters, Debbie McGrew, Jeremy Brown.
Yes.
All right, we have one more nomination. I don't know how it's going to get the votes to beat that, but we'll take the last nomination and I believe that was
Yes.
Thomas Anderson, Jim Young,
No.
Dayton Myers,
No.
Alan Floyd,
No.
Brian Peters, Debbie McGrew, Jeremy Brown.
No.
Okay, Justice Myers will be the chair and Justice Peters will be the vice chair. You can close your meeting out, Justice.
We are adjourned.
It's called to order the Finance Committee meeting, last committee meeting of the evening. We do have some business for finance after we get a chair and vice chair elected. We'll just carry on into the business of the evening. Entertain a motion or a nomination for chair and vice chair of finance.
I nominate Debbie McGrew for chair and Jeremy Brown for vice chair. Second.
Motion and a second for Debbie McGrew and Jeremy Brown. Any more nominations? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Chairman McGrew, you are assigned a finance committee.
So I need to call the Finance Committee to order. We're going to go ahead with the agenda, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Can we start with the pledge and a prayer? Or do we want to pass that by and go on to the Quorum Court side of that?
We can do it however you want to do it. You're in charge.
Okay, perfect. So we'll call this meeting to order with a prayer. Father God, we just thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be here. Thank you for everybody here. Thank you that we have the freedom to do this. Father, I lift up to you tonight's business. Father, give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding we need to make good decisions for our county and to represent our people. All these things I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is consideration of an ordinance to amend the 2025 Garland County Budget Ordinance O-2433 to anticipate revenues, appropriate and transfer funds in various budgets and for other purposes.
I vote for a due pass.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Dr. Peters, and a second from Justice Hunter. Open for discussion. Justice Peters had a motion and Justice Hunter had a second. Open for discussion. Judge, if you wouldn't mind, would you run over these just real quick, just in
Sure.
case anybody has any questions?
Item
please?
2A, the county judge requests the correction of the anticipated revenue for solid waste fund, increasing it by the 20% resulting from the increase in half-cent sales tax for the county general fund. Over the past 2 years, we've been adjusting our actual revenue to meet our anticipated revenue. And for the past 2 years, we went up 20% to get that sales tax adjusted. So it's really close to what we're actually bringing in. And this just slipped through the cracks and did not make it to the budget. So it doesn't change anything other than we increase the amount of revenue that's coming in by the 20%, the same as we did for the general fund. Item B, $780,802.03 is transferred from the solid waste fund to the solid waste budget for the tire cleaner that ADEQ is requiring us to put in at the landfill for not tracking onto the highway out there. Vehicles coming out of the landfill will cross this tire cleaner and they won't track out onto the highway. And then the 705,802 is for the completion of the 70 West transfer station. That's no increase in the cost. It's just money that we're transferring over from 2024 to the 2025 budget so we can complete that. Circuit Division 1 judge has been awarded a 24-25 peer recovery specialist. Those of you that have been on the court for a year or so will remember that Judge Ohm came to us with a grant where we received $50,000 to hire a peer recovery specialist, and that went for 1 year. They've renewed the grant, but it's being handled in a different manner now. It's being handled through AOC rather than DHS. So AOC is going to do it in the reimbursement process rather than giving the money up front. So we are going to set it up like we do our VOCA grants. We're going to set it up where we pay it and they get reimbursed. So this is basically to get us started on moving forward with keeping that individual working. And we've managed to keep her working all through the fall. And I don't know if any of you have heard or not, but she's doing great things as a peer recovery. I think that the prosecutor can attest to that she has done some really great things, and we're seeing some changes in people's lives that need to happen. Item D, the sheriff has been awarded a selective traffic enforcement project. As you are on the Quorum Court over the year, you'll see several of these come through the STEP program. It's some money that provides for our deputies to work some overtime and do selective traffic enforcement. And it's a great program, and it's subsidized our pay for our employees a lot over the past few years, and we're very glad to have it. And the prosecuting attorney has been awarded a Victims of Crime DeVoca grant in the amount of $55,189.43. And these are appropriated, and she's had that person on staff for a couple years now, haven't you? So that's the long and short of it.
Okay, any further discussion? I have a motion on the floor and a second. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Move for a due pass. This third item on agenda is the other business. As you can see, they should have on the screen back here, you'll have the position and salary adjustments. And it looks like we have no increase there. It's got a small decrease. And we've got the overtime report, which you can see has gone down a little bit in December, which is good. Moving on to the 0.5% county sales tax, which is also down just a little bit for December.
I believe our sales tax growth in 24 was about 3%. Susan, is that just a hair over 3%? So it's not what we've had the past few years, but you can't anticipate having that every year, the kind of growth we've seen. So we did have growth though, regardless.
And you've got the next up there, the Oaklawn report. And it is up.
If you notice the rebates, they topped $1 million this year. And that's something if we could get any assistance, and I'm going to reach out to our legislators and see if they could ask the state to help us with those, because that's a lot of money to come out of our sales tax. And you know, the state collects 6% on everything, and we do not collect that much. So if they could help us with it and split it with us or something, it certainly would be helpful, because that's a pretty good sum to come out of there. As you can see, it's been climbing for a few years, and although we have some transparency on where it's being spent, it was set up to encourage economic development, and I think it has done that, but I think it's also now being used for other things that are not really spurring economic development. The Oaklawn revenue report was very good.
Any questions? Any discussion? No new business, so I call this meeting adjourned.
All right. Good job.
Ordinance Committee. First on the agenda is Ordinance 023-1. Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of Garland County, the state of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance setting the organization and rules of procedure for the Garland County Quorum Court. And can I get a motion?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Judge, you want to explain this one at all, or?
I think that one's me, Justice Broughton.
All right.
Just for everyone's attention, this is required by state law. Every time a new quorum court is convened, you are required to adopt an ordinance that governs your procedures and your guidelines as to how you operate. That's what this ordinance does. If you see on your screens, I've made one minor change in the one that exists in your packet. So in the blue the blue binders that are on your desk, you have a current version with the one minor change, and that is I've renumbered it to say 23, say 25 instead of 23. And the last line of Article 18 on the screen, I've added a repealer. And the reason for that is the Association of Counties does our codification, and they are currently doing that codification. This makes their job a lot easier without having to relist and codify the older ordinances. So other than that, it is the same as the one that's in your packet. So if there are questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them, but this is a routine procedure that is done every time a new court is taken in office. And earlier you should have received in your packet the clean version and the marked up version to show you what's new in this one and what the changes are. Most of them are basic, just cleaning up language and minor changes. I'll answer any questions that you have.
If there are no questions, I want to amend it and say ordinance 025-1 and get a motion for that.
So, second.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Ordinance 025-1 receives a due pass. All right. Oh, I see the amended.
That's it for now. When they go into the quorum court after their adjournment.
And that's it. All right. Motion to adjourn.
No move.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought there was two on there. I didn't realize that was a amendment.
To order. Tonight's business is the procedural ordinance that just came through ordinance. Procedural guidance from John Howard. Sarah, would you please read ordinance 025-1 in its entirety?
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of Garland County, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance setting the organization and rules of procedure for the Garland County Quorum Court, whereas rules and procedures assure orderly conduct and encourage clear, efficient discussion of ideas, and whereas the rules and procedures adopted by the Quorum Court should be reviewed on a regular basis and modified when necessary. And whereas the rules and procedures shall be used for all regular and special meetings of the Quorum Court that are legislative in nature and as applicable to public hearings of the Quorum Court or its committees. And whereas pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 1414-904A, the Quorum Court shall adopt an organizational ordinance at its first regular meeting after the beginning of the justice's term in office or at a special meeting in January called for that purpose. And said ordinance shall be effective immediately upon passage. And now therefore it be ordained by the Quorum Court of Garland County, Arkansas, that Article 1, regular meetings. The regular meetings for the Quorum Court and committees thereof will be as set forth herein. The committee meeting schedule set forth herein is a general schedule. All committees shall meet as necessary and may not meet if there is no business to conduct. Quorum Court, 6 p.m., the second Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building, 200 Woodbine, Hot Springs, Arkansas. The November Quorum Court meeting shall be at 6 p.m., the fourth Monday at the Garland County Armory Building. Finance Committee, 5:30 p.m., the first Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building. Human Resources Committee, at a time to be determined, the fourth Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building. Ordinance Committee, 5:30 p.m., the second Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building. Public Health, Welfare, and Safety Committee, 5:30 p.m., the fourth Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building. Public Works and Buildings Environmental Committee, 5:30 p.m., the third Monday of each month at the Garland County Armory Building. IT Committee, at a date and time to be determined, at the Garland County Armory Building. These meetings may be held at any other location and time that is designated at the regular scheduled meeting of the preceding month. All meetings, times, and locations shall be published at garlandcounty.org. The order of business for regular Quorum Court and committee meetings shall be invocation, pledge of allegiance, attendance roll call, approval of the previous meeting's minutes, reports from committees, old business, new business, announcements, public comment, and adjournment. Article 2, special meetings. As provided by Arkansas Code Annotated 1414-109C, the county judge or a majority of the elected justices may call a special meeting at the Quorum Court upon at least 24 hours' notice by telephone, facsimile, or electronic mail. Article 3, public comment during meetings. The public shall be entitled to attend any public meeting pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated 2519-106 and Arkansas Code Annotated 1414-109. Any individual may be recognized by the presiding officer for comment on any issue that is on the agenda pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated 1414-109B. Citizens shall have a reasonable opportunity to participate prior to the final decision. The issue must be announced before the speaker is recognized, and an individual shall not have more than 3 minutes to speak on any one issue. If a member of the Quorum Court asks a question of an individual who has been recognized for comment, that individual shall not have more than 1 minute to respond. In the event a citizen wishes to bring an item to the Quorum Court that is not on the court's agenda, the item shall first be referred to and presented in the appropriate committee. The committee shall hear the citizen's presentation and vote whether to advance the item to the full Quorum Court. Committee review procedures shall be set as forth in Article 15 herein. The time limitations set forth in this section shall not apply to representatives of entities who have been requested to appear by the county judge or Quorum Court to provide reports or testimony regarding items on the Quorum Court agenda. A 2/3 vote of the total membership of the Quorum Court shall be required to override any provision of Article 3. Article 4, virtual meetings. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, the Garland County Quorum Court adopted the use of virtual meeting technology in such instances as authorized by state law. The Quorum Court and its committees shall strive to make each such technology available for the use and benefit of the public whenever practicable. To the extent possible, all virtual meetings will follow the same procedural guidelines as in-person meetings. Article 5, Rules of Procedure, Adoption and Interpretation. Adoption, the rules of procedure for transacting business at Quorum Court meetings shall be those contained in the latest edition of the Procedural Guide for Arkansas County Quorum Court Meetings as prepared by the University of Arkansas and the Association of Arkansas Counties, except as otherwise provided by ordinance or where such guide is in conflict with the general laws of the state of Arkansas. Use, in any event where the procedural guide for Arkansas County Quorum Court meetings is inadequate, the Quorum Court shall abide by the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Interpretation. Any question as to the interpretation or application of the procedural guide or Robert's Rules will be referred to the parliamentarian of the Quorum Court, who will then make his or her interpretation to the presiding officer of the meeting. The county attorney shall serve as parliamentarian of the Quorum Court. The application, procedural guide, or Robert's Rules will then be resolved by the presiding officer. Article 6, Agenda. All proposed items to be considered by the Quorum Court at the regular monthly meeting shall be submitted in writing to the county judge or his designee. Once the proposed items have been submitted, the county judge or his or her designee shall assign them to an appropriate committee of the Quorum Court for consideration. Each request shall have at least one Quorum Court member listed as a sponsor. Requests to have proposed items considered may require supporting documents that clearly state the reasons or justifications for the proposed item. Items received from the public need not have a Quorum Court member as a sponsor, but must go through the committee review and approval process prior to consideration by the full Quorum Court. An agenda including all ordinances, resolutions, appointments, and supporting documentation to be introduced to the Quorum Court shall be emailed to the Quorum Court members a minimum of 5 days prior to the introduction at a Quorum Court meeting. However, this restriction may be suspended by a 2/3 vote of the whole number of the Quorum Court in times of an emergency or dire need. All ordinances, resolutions, and appointments shall be filed in the Garland County Clerk's office. The agenda for each Quorum Court meeting shall be set by the Garland County Judge or his or her designee. The county attorney shall review all ordinances and resolutions prior to the inclusion on the agenda. The county judge has designated the county clerk to prepare the agendas for the Quorum Court and to maintain the minutes and records of the Quorum Court. The county judge has designated the finance department in conjunction with the county judge's office to prepare all committee meeting agendas and maintain any minutes and records of the committees. Article 7, handling of motions. A motion is a formal statement or proposition presented to the Quorum Court for consideration and action. Presenting and disposing of a motion follows this pattern: addressing the presiding officer and stating the reason for requesting recognition by the presiding officer, statement of the motion by the member, seconding the motion, statement of the motion by presiding officer or chairperson, reading of ordinance or resolution by county clerk, discussing the motion if applicable, as not all motions are debatable, and voting on the motion. Article 8, passing ordinances or amendments to ordinances. A concurrence by a majority of the whole number of the Quorum Court shall be required to pass any ordinance or amendment. All ordinances or amendments to existing ordinances of a general or permanent nature shall be fully and distinctly read on 3 different days, unless 2/3 of the members comprising the whole Quorum Court shall dispense with the rule. This rule does not serve to require a vote after each individual reading, but a vote only after the 3rd and final reading. Require the ordinance or amendment to be read in its entirety on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd reading, or restrict the passage of emergency appropriation initiative or referendum measures in a single meeting as provided by law. Article 9, voting on ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance to affect adoption of each ordinance, a roll call vote of each Quorum Court member shall be made by district number, lowest number to highest number. Resolution, the county clerk or his or her designee shall read resolutions by title only unless the presiding officer requests that it be read in its entirety. To effect passage of each resolution, a voice vote of the whole Quorum Court shall be made that allows the presiding officer to determine the results by the volume of the votes for and against the resolution. If the presiding officer is uncertain of the result, he or she may call for a roll call vote of each Quorum Court member. Roll call votes shall be called in the same sequence as for ordinances. Motion to read by title only. In certain circumstances, it may be desired for the county clerk or his or her designee to read a proposed ordinance by title only. In those instances, before there is a motion to approve the ordinance, there must be a separate and distinct motion to suspend the rule and read by title only. Once there is a motion and a second to suspend the rule and read by title only, the presiding officer will ask for a voice vote on the motion to suspend the rule. If there are any votes against the suspension of the rule and outcome of the vote is uncertain, the presiding officer may ask that a roll call vote be taken of each Quorum Court member. If the motion to suspend the rules passes, there may then be a motion and second to approve the ordinance. Roll call votes shall be called in the same sequence for ordinances. Article 10, procedure to adopt an ordinance in less than 3 different days. In order to adopt an ordinance in one meeting, the procedure shall be: first reading, motion to suspend the rule and put the ordinance on second reading, roll call vote on suspension, approval by 2/3 of the whole number of the Quorum Court. Second reading can be by title only. Motion to suspend the rules and put the ordinance on third reading, roll call vote on suspension, approval by 2/3 of the whole number of the Quorum Court. Third reading can be by title only. Roll call vote on the ordinance, approval by a majority of the whole number of the Quorum Court. Article 11, appropriation and emergency ordinances and effective dates. Appropriation ordinance or amendments enacted without separate reading shall require a 2/3 vote of the whole number of the Quorum Court. Emergency ordinance, an emergency ordinance or an emergency amendment does not require separate readings. The passage of an emergency measure shall require a 2/3 vote of the whole number of the Quorum Court. Effective dates pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 1414-905. No ordinance or amendment to an existing ordinance other than an emergency ordinance or appropriation ordinance shall be effective until 30 calendar days after publication has appeared. An ordinance or amendment to an existing ordinance may provide for a delayed effective date or may provide for the ordinance or amendment to an existing ordinance to become effective upon the fulfillment of an indicated contingency. Article 12, standing committees of the Quorum Court. Purpose: the section is intended to facilitate the orderly conduct of county business through Quorum Court standing committees, procedural guidelines, and the rules of membership for such committees and the subject matter to be considered by each of the various committees. Establishment: there shall be 6 standing committees of the Quorum Court: Finance Committee, Human Resources Committee, Ordinance Committee, Public Health, Welfare and Safety Committee, Public Works, Buildings, Environmental Committee, IT Committee. Each quorum court member may serve on multiple committees. Committee members are appointed by the county judge, and committees may consist of 7 members or another number as determined by the county judge. Article 13, membership. The Finance Committee may consist of up to 13 members as determined by the county judge. The Public Works and Safety Committee may consist of up to 13 members as determined by the county judge. All other committees may consist of up to 7 members as determined by the county judge. The members of each committee shall be appointed by the presiding officer of the quorum court, subject to any procedural rules adopted by the quorum court as required by Arkansas Code Annotated 14-14904D. Chairs and vice chairs, if any, shall be elected by the committee members at initial organizational meetings. Article 14, subcommittees. Subcommittees may be formed by any of the standing committees. The standing committee chairman shall appoint members to each subcommittee. It is the intent of this section that every effort shall be made to prevent the proliferation of such committees, and that any such subcommittee shall automatically cease to exist once it has completed its assigned task or on the first day of the next quorum court term. Article 15, committee review of agenda items. All quorum court agenda items will be considered by at least one of the standing committees. All proposed committee agenda items shall be received by the department preparing the agenda not later than the Tuesday preceding the committee meeting, unless there is an emergency or dire need. Agenda shall be forwarded to the committee members not later than 5 days prior to the committee meeting. Any items not approved by at least one of the committees will not appear on the full quorum court agenda unless it is added to the agenda by a 2/3 vote of the whole number of the quorum court. Article 16, staff. The county judge shall provide staff to the quorum court and its committees who shall attend each meeting and may be responsible for research as requested by the quorum court or its committees. The county judge's designee shall attend each meeting of the quorum court, and its committees may be responsible for research as required by the quorum court and its committees. If unable to attend, the county judge shall designate a replacement to attend. Article 17, modification. The quorum court may at any regular meeting revise or modify these rules or adopt new rules by a majority vote of the full membership. Article 18, repealer. Any ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed.
Judge, if it's appropriate, I move we place this on its second reading by title only, ordinance 025-1. Happily thirded also.
She's probably tighter of it than we are. All right, have a motion on the floor to suspend the rules and place ordinance 025-01 on its second reading by title only. Sarah, please call the roll.
Justice Broughton,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Bales, Hooten,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Floyd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
McGrew,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Eds.
Yes.
All right, Sarah, please read 025-01 by title only.
Being enacted by the Quorum Court of Garland County, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance setting the organization and rules of procedure for the Garland County Quorum Court.
Move we suspend the rules and place ordinance 025-01 on its third and final reading by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules, place 025-01 on its third and final reading by title only. Sarah, please call the roll.
Justice Broughton,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Bales,
Yes.
Hooten,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Floyd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
McGrew,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Eds.
Yes.
All right, Sarah, 025-01 by title only.
Being enacted by the Quorum Court of Garland County, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance setting the organization and rules of procedure for the Garland County Quorum Court.
Move to adopt 025-01.
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt. Any discussion? Hearing none, Sarah, please call the roll.
Justice Broughton,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Jones, Young,
Yes.
Bales, Hooten,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Floyd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
McGrew,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Eds.
Yes.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Who was that?
Justice Broughton made the motion and a second by Justice Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
John's got a quick
Can't
bit of
leave just
information
yet.
for you.
So everyone, and for the new justices, I think I know everyone, maybe one or two faces. I'm John Howard. I'm the county attorney. I have had some questions from several of you about various things, and this one I think is fairly important, so I'll just make a quick little presentation for you. And so you have a blue folder on your desks. This is the law that governs public meetings and public documents. I want to walk you through it because it may be things that you're not aware of or things you don't know how to operate. So there's two main statutes you need to be aware of, and they are both inside this folder. So Arkansas Code annotated 2519-101 is the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act. And you have the section of 106, which is public meetings. And this is important. Put it back in there, I'm gonna need it. This is important because you may or may not realize that you are having a public meeting, and you need to know when you're having a public meeting. So a public meeting under this section is any entity that is funded by public money, and it's a governing body. Governing body has been defined as someone with decision-making authority. So any meeting, formal, informal, special, or regular, of a governing body of any county entity, so that's you all, the legislative body of the county, if you're supported by public funds, which you are, it shall be a public meeting. So this comes into play when inadvertently you see one of your counterparts and you just talk. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, what's on the agenda this week? Well, let's talk about this agenda. Can't do that. Whether you do it intentionally or not, you can't do that because you're discussing the public's business outside of a public meeting. If two or more members of a governing body have that meeting, you're violating the FOIA. And the violation is a Class C misdemeanor, and you can be required to pay attorney's fees and costs if someone were to sue over that. So there are things, little nuances you need to be aware of. If you ever get email from me about anything that's coming up on your agenda, you will see language at the end of that email that says, this is for informational purposes only. Don't discuss. Don't respond. I will never ask you to comment and tell me what you think about something on an email, because when you do that, you're creating an electronic public meeting. If you discuss an item that could be coming up in front of you that's public business by email, that's an electronic meeting, or text, that's an electronic meeting. So you need to be aware of those things. I know nobody's doing these things intentionally, but it can sneak up on you. Somebody gets you a text, hey, what time are you going to be there? You know, can you tell them this is how I think about this item because I'm going to be late? That's an electronic meeting. That violates the law. So you need to be aware of those things. So that's the primary thing. You are also able to have social gatherings. So just don't think that just because you're all on the quorum court, some of your friends, you may hang out with each other. As long as you don't discuss public business, you can have a social gathering. Quorum Court has a Christmas meeting or a Christmas party every year. They've had that for many, many years, and that's fine as long as public business is not conducted there. So don't think just because you see somebody in the Walmart and you stop to say, hey, that you're in trouble. You're not. You can do those sorts of things. So that's pretty important. I want you to be aware of that one. The time and place of meetings are furnished to anybody who requests them, so the public has the opportunity to come. Those things are taken care of generally by the county judge's office. The agendas go out as we just described in your procedural ordinance so that the world is aware of it. Any special meetings, the media has to be notified so that in case there's not enough time for public notice, the public at least has the opportunity to have a representative present by the media. So the media organizations within the county are all notified of those things. So be aware of that. Meetings have to be recorded. So this is a relatively new addition, and we are doing that, have been doing that. Recordings don't have to be video recorded, but we have done that. That is a requirement of your procedural ordinance. That's not in the state statute, but that's in the procedural ordinance that your meetings are recorded both video and audio. And if you look at the back of the room, there's a camera back there that is now running, and that records everything by video. The Garland County Library, Adam Webb here, the director, is also here to make sure that this gets running properly, and they run these meetings on their YouTube channel. And he or his designate, whoever happens to be here, has smaller cameras that are usually set up capturing different images. We're required to keep those recordings for at least 1 year. So those recordings by law have to stay available for at least 1 year. The official recordings stay with Sarah, the minutes, the audio, the YouTube channel has that stuff posted on the internet. There was a reference in your procedural ordinance about being able to meet electronically in the instance that was triggered by COVID. And we have some very limited circumstances that we can do that. Generally, you have to, the way that quorum court statutes are set up is that you have to gather. You have to come together in person. You can't do it electronically. Some other entities you can. Only if there is an emergency declared by the governor can we have electronic meetings. So in any instance where the governor declares that there's an emergency, like we had during COVID for quite a while there, we had electronic meetings. There's a statute that allows that. But for the general rule, most of the time, you're going to have to gather to have a proper meeting. So that's the meeting portion of the FOIA. Now be aware, unlike other public entities, the city doesn't have this next statute that I'm about to tell you about, but counties do. In the county government code, there is another meeting statute. It's 1414-109. And that is public meetings. And that one does not include governing bodies. It does include governing bodies, but it's not just limited to governing bodies. So for example, in the FOIA, if we had two JPs who got together with, say, the treasurer, I'm looking for any elected official in the audience, that's a meeting. That's a problem. If one JP gets together with the treasurer and talks about whatever's coming up on the questions on the budget, that's perfectly fine. Under the county statute, if we create a entity for that purpose, let's create a subcommittee that consists of the county treasurer and the county judge and the county clerk and the coroner and one JP. Under the FOIA, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. It's not a public meeting. But if we create that entity for a special purpose, get all these individuals together to study a new taxation scheme, and we're going to call it the New Tax Committee. Even though it's not a governing body, doesn't have any decision-making authority, under the county meeting statute, that meeting is open to the public as well. So we have to be careful about that. If we create any sub-bodies, any entity created by the county for a special purpose, under the county statute, that becomes a public meeting, even though it's not a governing body. And those don't have to necessarily be recorded. Those just have to be done with minutes. They also have to have some rules for conducting that meeting, which you just covered. I've lumped both the county statute and the FOIA into your procedural ordinance. So you just covered those. A couple other little things quickly here. Be aware what a public record is. Public record is basically anything that is kept, is required to be kept, or is otherwise kept. So that can even be on your personal devices and documents. So if you've got your notes on your phone, if you've got a text string on your personal phone that talks about what your meeting's going on at your meeting, that's a public record. You're conducting public business that way, even though it's on your own personal device. That can be something that would be subject to FOIA. That's 2519-103 is your definitions, and there's a couple of items that I've highlighted in there. And then the rest of this booklet is the Freedom of Information Act handbook. The Attorney General's office puts this out, and for many, many years, it's been around for decades. They update it every few years. They've put out a little pamphlet-sized version of this. Well, when we contacted them this week to get it, they've stopped printing the paper version. All they have is PDF. So I printed you one. It's in this booklet. What you have is the most recent version. So if there's any questions, always feel free to contact me. If you have concerns about, hey, can I do this, or should I do this, or is this an issue, feel free to contact me. But I've also put the booklet in here in case you want to just have something to flip through. And then lastly, I'll talk to you just briefly about, kind of just covered it there, public documents, what a public record is. That could potentially include your emails and your texts. That's in section 2519-103. And be aware of 2519-105, which is the sections which are exemptions from public records. So there's a ton of those. If you ever get something, I don't know, is this something that I can get, or is this something that if I have in my possession, I have to give up if someone wants it? Feel free to contact me about that. I'll walk you through what's exempt and what's not. Because there's 26 or 27 exemptions now subject to FOI. Most of them relate to things like security and private information, personal information, but there are a number of them that are not public records. And that's it. I'm available for questions at any time. You can always call or email my office. If you have questions here, I don't need it. I was going to just walk them through it. If you have questions here, I'll try to answer. That's all I have. I don't want to hold it up.
Okay. Be sure to bring your packets back next week if you don't mind it. When you sign off on all of your paperwork, especially if you're new, JP, you'll need that to get paid. You'll need a copy of your social security card and your driver's license, please. And Alan, you have one of those in front of you as well. Yes, sir.
Earned.
If anybody on Friday, I've got plenty for you. If you don't think your hand fits, come on up. We'll try anyway.
You can have
A couple hours, we should be able to tell.